Thank you, Dr. Eugenia. We will now have Dr. George A. Genyi.
My paper is actually titled Ethnic and Religious Identities, Shaping Contestation for Land-Based Resources, the Tea Farmers and Pastoralist Conflict in Central Nigeria. I'm talking about two groups in Nigeria, and you are well aware that Nigeria is a multicultural ethnic community of about 250 ethnic groups that are conspicuous in Nigeria. This is also further categorized into two. You have three out of this that are regarded as majority ethnic groups. Now, the remaining constitute what we refer to as minorities. But of the minorities, you also find the Tiv that you may like to refer to as a majority within a minority. And if you look at the map of Nigeria, the red area is what I'm referring to as Central Nigeria. Now, this is where you find majority of the Tiv people. All these states, as you could see them, you have Plateau, where the next one is Nasarawa, Benue, Kogi, and then Taraba, where it's white. The Tiv are very dominant in this area. Now, the Tiv are a sedentary group. Majority of them are farmers. The resources, land-based, I'm talking about here, will refer to water resources, will refer to land itself, because majority of the Tiv earth they are living from the land. The Fulani are a pastoralist group, a nomadic pastoralist group. And the Fulani use movement, mobility, as a strategy of production. And if you look at the northeastern part of Nigeria, where you have Borno down to Adamawa and Yobe, down here, this is where you have majority of them. And they are found largely all across Africa, but they migrate all the way from there into Nigeria, and they have become an indigenous group in Nigeria. They are not a dominant group in Nigeria, but they are a sizable group in Nigeria. And the migration, you see them moving seasonally, because in Nigeria we are talking about two major systems, seasonal systems, the dry season and the wet season. Now, during the dry season, which is sometime between November to about March or April, you see the Fulanis migrating from Borno, Adamawa down into the red areas. Now, within the red areas, you have two major rivers, River Niger and River Benue. Now, these two major rivers supply water resources, supply water to both groups. But this water is very strategic also to both groups, because the Fulani come with their cattle and they need the water to survive. Now, this area is also very good because it is free of tsetse fly, a fly that hurts the cattle very well. And right across Nigeria, this is one area in which the cattle can find themselves almost throughout the year and be free from these bites, from these flies. And the tea farmers are here using the land, relying on the land for production of cash, of crops, both for consumption and for cash income. Now, during the dry season, when water is drying up, the cattle, the Fulanis are moving down with their cattle into this central area. Now, they will be here when the rain starts coming and the places become muddy, then they start retreating back into northern Nigeria. Now, this area has witnessed very serious contestation in the last 10 to 15 years. The Fulanis used to move in here in the 70s and in the 80s with their families. They will come with all the families, but they will not be armed. They will come and ask for permission to settle from the local population. And then they will settle. Some of them may remain there for years without going back to the north. Since the 1990s, the Fulanis have started coming in now fully armed. And why? Because two factors. Population explosion among the Tiv and the Fulanis. In the 1950s, the Tiv were recorded to be about 800,000. Today, the Tiv are within the range of 4 to 5 million. And the Fulanis have also rapidly increased in numbers. Secondly, the conspiracy of climate and environment. Desert encroachment, the drying up of water resources, and so they're moving and they can't go back. Because they go back and they have no water for their cattle. When they move in here, it is difficult for the cattle to distinguish between crops and herbs, just ordinary herb that the cattle will feed from. For the cattle, corn appear just like ordinary herbage. And so it is difficult for them to distinguish that. Now, because of population explosion, the areas that the Fulanis would use in the 70s and in the 80s have disappeared under the Hole and the Cutlass. Because the tea population has expanded and have moved to take over cultivation of those areas. But the Fulanis can't go back because if they go back to the north, they will have no foliage, they will have no sufficient water. Now, because of this, the stage had been set for these clashes. Now, since the late 1990s, the arrival of the Fulanis, now heavily armed because now it is a do or die situation. If we go back, we will perish with our cattle. Now we need to stay here and contest for available space. But again, the two groups have also failed to respond to modernization, largely and particularly the Fulanis that have been touched very little by modernization. The tea farmers too have been touched very little in the sense in which they have continued to use the old system of cultivation, shifting cultivation, moving from, and they continue to expand because agriculture has not been modernized amongst them. And so the stage is set for very fierce competition. And because since the 1990s, the area you see in red, this is the hottest place in the last 4 years. And this is just in one state. And this is the hottest place because right over there you have River Benue, and all these areas are supplied directly by the major river. And you find the Fulani and their cattle hanging here now all year round. They can't go back. They have to remain here whether rain season or dry season because throughout the period they feed from here. And so armed clashes have continued to occur and have become extremely fierce in the last 3 or 4 years. My argument in this paper is that it is time that both groups will need to respond to the reality of modern production and intergroup relationship. Because it is also very easy to access small weapons and small arms and light weapons. The Fulanis are more armed than the tea farmers. And as we speak, I'm speaking from the point of view of a scholar. I'm also speaking from the point of view of someone who lives within this area. And in the last 6 months before now, armed Fulani came in and fought and displaced huge numbers of tea farmers out of the place. I had photographs somewhere there which you needed to see. And this has raised sufficient tension, ethnic tension. The religious component is simply because the Fulanis are largely Muslims, and the tea farmers are largely Christians. Amongst the tea, you can just talk about 0.01% of the entire 5 million people who may be Muslims. But you can talk about 100% of all the Fulanis coming in as Muslims. So that religious element comes in because of this kind of composition. The attacks are not necessarily reflective of the religious orientation, because a large part of the lower Benue is made up of a huge population of the Muslims, but they attack them at the same time. So the question is not about religiosity, it's about access to land-based resources. My submission in this paper is that both groups, government and the society, need to respond by checking that the groups begin to appreciate mechanized modern systems of production. Because the inevitability of population explosion warrants that until these two systems of production are modernized, contestation for these resources will continue, probably until one group is sufficiently armed and strong enough to be able to eliminate the other. And I think this is where the government, the society, and the groups themselves must need to positively respond to altering their systems of production to be able to accommodate both groups within this space. Thank you.